Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting for November 20th, 2018. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here with us in City Hall as we go about doing the city's business. And without any further delay, let me ask our city clerk to read the roll, please.
Director Hendricks, Director Richardson, Director Peck, here. Director Hines, present. Director Wright, here. Director Wyrick, Director Campiris, Director Fortson, here. Director Adcock, here. Vice Mayor Webb, here. Mayor Stodola.
Here. Let me call on Father Fred Ball of the San Damiano Ecumenical Catholic Church for our invocation, please. Father Fred.
Let us pray. God, our Creator, source of light and life, goodness and grace, we recognize that each person here is a divine expression of your love. And in this Thanksgiving week, may our primary posture before you and one another be one of gratitude. So we give you thanks that you have set us in community, in relationships, in this city together as one people. We give you thanks for the freedom to gather and deliberate the best ways that we may care for one another. We give you thanks for the privilege of service, sharing the bounty of talents and treasures which you have given us, because we know that they're not intended for our good alone. As we work together, enlighten the eyes of our hearts, give us true faith, certain hope, perfect charity, sense and knowledge, O God, that we may carry out your holy and true will. And always keep our ears open to the cry of the poor, who remind us that we are all utterly dependent on you and on your love shown through our neighbors. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you would please join in, stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for a change, we don't have any presentations today, but we do have a request from staff to modify our agenda to defer item 8. Is there a motion for deferral? There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any discussion?
Mayor.
Mr. Richardson, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I know we had detailed working group to do a report on this, do an analysis of this. What is the source of this amendment? Is it something that's done unilaterally, or does it have input or involvement from other folks who were part of that initial process?
I know there's been several folks from neighborhood associations and organizations that have been working on this. Let me ask either Mr. Moore or Mr. Carpenter to respond, please.
That's correct, Mayor. We've had extensive meetings with that back years with the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods and other interested parties.
But I understand that, but I'm saying, has that same process been utilized for this amendments that we're talking about? So we do have that same kind of input and involvement from the community.
We do.
Quit turning me off. I know you're not running again, Mayor. It does have that same input.
What? Correct.
And we have that same kind of support that we've had before.
That was our thought. Obviously, others differ, then we'll hear from them in a few weeks.
Well, I mean, it seems like, I don't know if anyone else has been getting these correspondences, but it seems like I've been getting the last couple of days a lot of opposition to this, and some of it has come from people who are involved in that initial process, and that's quite puzzling to me.
Mayor.
Director Richardson.
I'm not too.
If I may, I'm the one that requested this be modified until the next agenda. The latter part of last week, I got an email from Mr. Lynch and shortly afterwards I got one from Miss Wells, Kathy Wells, Jim Lynch and Kathy Wells, and they expressed concerns about it. I'm not sure that the concerns are not addressed in the ordinance, but I am sure that I wasn't going to be able to get that resolved before tonight. In the meantime, Miss Amy Pritchard, who is one of the professors at the Little Rock Law School and has been involved in this, has made a couple of additional things. So what I'm trying to do is to get out, hopefully tomorrow, but if not Friday, you know, what the changes are in the explanation. One particular change that they spoke about, we're going to put back in, and it's the use of the word systematic in the title of one of the provisions of the ordinance, and see if this in fact meets their concerns or if there is another concern there. But that was the reason I asked for the matter to be put off, and Bruce agreed.
So having not looked at this totally or completely, was one of the changes changing the language from requirement to goals?
Well, I think that's where the concern came from. The initial language throughout the ordinance as a whole, not the amendments, but throughout the ordinance as a whole, there's a reference to systematic inspections. But that's there for two reasons. One is because we want to make sure that there is a system in place. But the second one is that the city can utilize what's known as an administrative search warrant if we go to inspect a place and the owner refuses. For typical search warrants in a criminal matter, we have to have probable cause that a crime exists before we can go in. But for inspection types of matters, the mere fact of refusal gives us the probable cause under the U.S. Constitution to be able to get an administrative search warrant. Now, that warrant is limited. It allows us to go in and see, you know, if the ceiling works and the floorboards are in place and all the things that we look on when we're looking at a code enforcement type of inspection. It doesn't allow us to do anything else. And so that's why we had the language there. In one or two places, that word systematic was removed. The goal was put in there, I think, as an intention to show how much the city basically wanted to commit that it would do each year. And that's where I think the confusion was.
So we will have a chance, opportunity to discuss this during an agenda meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
All right, try your microphone. All right, very good. All right, Director Adcock, you're next, please. Damn it.
Exactly like it was in the beginning.
Try yours again, please.
Okay, this is not exactly like it was in the beginning. In the beginning, we spent 1 year looking at this. We also had lots of the landlords at the table. Ferris Hensley, Jack Bennett, lots of landlords were there, as well as Jim Lynch and Kathy Wells, and we all worked on it together. The things that those letters today have been saying is stuff that is in the ordinance already. Lots of it we just have not been able to get a handle on that much rental property in the city of Little Rock. But so much of what is in there is already in the ordinance from the beginning. But I don't think this time we had the input of lots of the landlords and then lots of the other people, and that is maybe the problem. Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Moore, did y'all have any landlords at the table this time?
Again, we mainly met with the coalition who had expressed the interest in revising the ordinance. And I think the most important thing is that when the ordinance was enacted, it never was really viable as far as we're going to inspect every rental unit within 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. And so this is an effort to say, okay, let's say we're going to inspect a certain percentage, a certain number of units every year, and determine how we move forward if there are those issues. So, but I think it really is reflective of where we are right now as far as the number of rental units and the number of officers that we have.
Mr. Moore, I have one question. In the very beginning, one of our problems was that we could not just pinpoint units we wanted to inspect. Mr. Carpenter said that we had to go citywide across the board and be systematic in it. So what has changed now that we're going to try to pinpoint rental units instead of Mr. Carpenter going systematically across the city?
Director Adcock, I think that we've always intended that, and I think these amendments intend that also. We've had three types of inspections in the initial ordinance. One was a periodic inspection of all rental properties. One was a complaint inspection based upon being towed, and one was an inspection every time that there was a change in occupancy in a particular matter. Now, I would put it, what we found out is that the resources we were committing to this didn't really meet all of that. This doesn't change anything about the complaint-based inspections, but there's a problem with complaint-based inspections, and that is that landlords get a complaint and they move the tenant out. What this is trying to do is make sure that we deal with the periodic aspect of it and have a certain percentage that we're trying to meet every year to show that it is a periodic inspection. It's not just hit and miss.
Okay, also, every one of the letters today that we received talked about giving protection to the tenants, so there's no repercussions from the landlords. Anything that you have written into this new one, does it address that?
I have not, and there was not anything proffered on that particular issue. That issue raises a really serious problem under the Arkansas Constitution, and I'm not sure that we have the authority to take that action.
Okay, I'd like for you to check to make sure, because that was one thing that we heard from everyone that we received a letter from today. Thank you.
All right, Director Adcock, or excuse me, Director Wyrick, you're next, please.
Thank you. Is there an ordinance?
In place, yes.
No, I know there's one in place, but is there a recommended change that has gone to Mr. Lynch and some other folks? Because I'm getting emails and calls about it, and I don't even know what it is that has been changed that they have complaints about. So we're supposed to have gotten one on Friday.
Well,
that's what you said on Tuesday, and I didn't get anything. So today I started trying to find out what the changes were. I got a little bit of changes from Neil Seeley this afternoon, but I'm not sure that the information that we're talking about changes has been publicized or where we are with it.
Director Wyrick, I can't address the issue of publication. There were changes that I understood were discussed with everyone. I was putting them into an ordinance format, making sure that it had the language I felt was necessary for the administrative searches, as I mentioned. And that's when I got, on Thursday afternoon or Friday, that's when I got the email first from Mr. Lynch indicating great concerns about this. And I know that the city manager had said we had shared this information, and then I got the email from Ms. Wells, and I set out, we've got these complaints, and I think we need to put this off because we weren't going to be able to get it done tonight. And
what document has been shared?
I've
not seen the document that was shared with everybody. Was it from September 27th? Was that when we shared it?
I'm not sure the date, but, and again, in order to share, again, this is something that happens internally, is that I believe Mr. Turner and his staff did share the draft that we had formulated in housing. It then goes to Mr. Carpenter, and that's when, again, originally it was supposed to be on this agenda. He said there were some complaints. So I don't think he has put together, and again, it's ultimately his responsibility to put the ordinance into proper form, and I don't think that's where we are right now. He has not done that. And I believe that's
everybody's objecting to something, so what are they looking at?
I assume it's a draft that Mr. Turner sent to Mr. Lynch and others.
Can I get a copy of that, or can the board get a copy of that?
Sure.
Okay, that's what I started asking for earlier today, and I got the old ordinance, and then I got one that came out in 2014, and then Neil Seeley sent me a couple of pages.
And
today.
We'll send it out. Just I would hope the board would keep in mind that this isn't Mr. Carpenter's version.
Right.
Okay.
But just if they have questions or they have some issues, then at least we'll know what they're talking about whenever they call us or email us. Thank you.
All right, this has been a major piece of legislation for the city in the past, and certainly there'll be lots of comments and questions. So we'll make sure that the staff make sure it gets circulated, and make sure that the various interested parties have a copy of the most recent draft as well.
And Mayor, I haven't been included on any of the emails that the board's been referring to tonight. If somebody would forward them to me, that would be helpful.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to defer this until December 3rd. All in favor of the motion to defer indicate by saying aye. Opposed say nay. The motion is deferred. We can now move on to the consent agenda, items 1 through 6. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read those items.
A motion to approve the minutes of the October 16th, 2018 and November 5th, 2018 Little Rock City Board of Director meetings. A resolution to authorize the mayor and the board of directors of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas to certify city liens attached to private property and forward to the Pulaski County Treasurer's Office for inclusion in the property owner's annual tax bill and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into utility relocation agreements necessary to construct the 2016 through 2018 street drainage capital improvement program, as authorized by resolution number 14310, March 15th, 2016, and for other purposes. A resolution to express the willingness of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas to utilize federal land access program grant funds and to authorize the city manager to execute all necessary agreements and contracts for its administration and for other purposes. A resolution to appoint one commissioner to fill a vacancy on the Board of Commissioners of the Pecan Lake Municipal Recreational Improvement District Number 4 of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. A resolution to prohibit the purchase of expanded polystyrene foam utilizing City of Little Rock monies and for other purposes.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The consent agenda has passed, and let me recognize Vice Mayor Kathy Webb for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say one thing about item number 6. It was stated that this came out of the Sustainability Commission, and while the Sustainability Commission was aware of it, there were a group of individuals, one of whom is here tonight, Sumeda Rao, if you raise your hand, Dennis Whiteman, Shelley Green, and Faith Mullins, and we have worked with Bruce over the last couple of months to basically take a city policy, expand it a little bit, make a very positive statement about it, but I wanted to make sure those 4 individuals who worked really hard on it at least were recognized for the work that they've been doing. Thank you.
Very good. It's all part of, I think, a very and continuing expansive role of sustainability that the city is exercising in a variety of different areas. So thank you. Okay, we can now move on to...
Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Moore.
On the item 5, there's an emergency clause.
Oh, item 5 needs to be an ordinance. Is an ordinance.
On the filling the vacancy.
Yeah, it's got to be an ordinance by statute. Mayor, item 5 is to replace the commissioner on the Pecan Lake Recreational Municipal Property Owners District Number 4. Unfortunately, by state statute, that has to be an ordinance. It was originally drafted as a resolution, and the ordinance was given to the city clerk this evening when we.
All right, let's.
You can treat the first one as a first reading with the word ordinance, and then
all right.
If you would have.
Very well. We'll. All right. Let me ask for I believe a motion and a second on all of the consent agenda with the exception of item 5. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. All right, we can now move on to item 5 as an ordinance, and let me ask for the second reading of item 5.
Need a motion.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on second reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Second reading, please.
An ordinance to appoint one commissioner to fill a vacancy on the Board of Commissioners of the Pecan Lake Municipal Recreation Improvement District Number 4 of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to declare an emergency and for other purposes.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to appoint one commissioner to fill a vacancy on the Board of Commissioners of the Pecan Lake Municipal Recreation Improvement District Number 4 of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to declare an emergency and for other purposes.
All right, we've had the three readings. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ordinance is passed. And on the emergency clause, all in favor of the emergency clause indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The emergency clause is also passed. Yes, Director Wyrick, please.
Thank you. We have a group of people from Pecan Lake here tonight that are very interested in this resolution ordinance. So Mr. Henry Gilmore, who's the new commissioner, is here tonight. So just to assure them he is safe and inside the Pecan Lake Commission, and we're happy to put him to work. Thank you.
Would the people who are here who are interested in this matter please stand? Mr. Gilmore? All right. Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Okay, that takes care of those items. We can now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is citizen communication. And I have one card for this, Mr. Russ Raycop, on the issue of noise.
Thank you, Mayor. Board, what I've handed out tonight are some earplugs. Director Wright gave a quote to the paper this last week or so that there had been a lot of noise out during the campaign. And I just want you guys to know for the next 4 years during citizen communication, I'm going to turn the noise level up to 11. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raycop. I think probably with hunting season starting, these might come in handy for a couple of other reasons as well. All right, we can now move on to the separate items. Director Richardson, yes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Your hunting season reference is a perfect segue to a point that I want to discuss very briefly before we get into the agenda, because I suspect we're going to spend a substantial amount of time on the first T item. But, excuse me, this past weekend we had some very disturbing activity in our community. And I think to me, it's a tragic irony that sometimes we say, we're not going to accept violent activity in our community, but yet and still we allow those conditions that produce that. And I think it's real troubling. I mean, Mayor, last year we had a 2-year-old that was murdered, a 3-year-old that was murdered, a triple homicide. Just recently had another triple homicide. Not one single emergency press conference. And I told my colleague, seatmate, y'all going to see a different disposition for me tonight because this has been really frustrating. We had a shooting downtown, no fatalities, an emergency press conference. So I don't know if we inadvertently saying some of these activities accepted over there to them intentionally or unintentionally, but I think there's a sense in our community that some of this stuff can happen in some places in our community and to certain people, and I think it's very disturbing for us to not understand why some of these young people don't value themselves or their lives or their colleagues' lives, when in fact I think sometimes some of the actions up here reinforces that. And I find it quite ironic that whenever we talk about youth programming, there's a couple of us who are adamant about talking about it with no idea of one principle of youth development, one step of transition to adulthood. But when this kind of stuff happened, silent as a church house mouse. And I think that's really, Mayor, is really unfortunate to the residents and the citizens in our community who are suffering from these acts. These are not normal activities, and they should not be considered as normal. And whenever this happens in any part of our community, any resident of our community, we should stop. just like we did when it happened downtown. We stopped. We had the Mercy press conference the very next day. We had that, fully attended. And since this has happened, with the exception of hearing from Bruce, hadn't heard a thing from anybody with respect to a concern about this. But some of us are more concerned about the reporting of this than the actual activity. And listen, we can't police our way out of this. If we're thinking that we can, we're fooling ourselves. The triple homicide happened 5 blocks away from the police station. When Corey was shot on 17th Street, that was 10 blocks away. And we can't have an understanding or belief that we're going to police ourselves out of this when policing is done one way in one part of town and another way in another part of town. That's idiotic, it's foolish, and it's simple. And we cannot continue having this selective outrage. We're upset and mad when violent activity happens in certain parts of our community and certain individuals of our community. I think that's foolish. I really do. And I feel bad that we're sending that kind of message, whether intentional or unintentional, to people in our community. Well, that's not even talking to the individual, understanding what the individuals are going through. My good friend, Dr. Compeers, would tell me an improper diagnosis would render an improper prescription. If we're not talking to them, we're not understanding, we're not working with the programs or having any kind of understanding of the conditions of those communities, I think that it's foolish of us to say this is unacceptable when we don't know what's going on. Now, when there's conversation about PIT contracts up here, there are a couple of us who would talk all night, question after question. But when this kind of stuff happens, don't hear a single solitary word at all. We have more emails and more concerns about First Tee than what just happened this past weekend. That is not normal. And we cannot continue to send a message to young people that that's supposed to happen in their community and to them. There are certain places where people do not expect this to happen. There are certain places in our community where people are happy to see our police department. There's some parts of our community where they're afraid or fearful or look at them as adversaries. And not one single word, man. We had a Mercy press conference after a shooting downtown. We had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old murdered last year. No Mercy press conference. We had 1 triple homicide last year. No Mercy press conference. We had 5 people die this past weekend. Not one single solitary Mercy press conference, not one single solitary concern expressed from any of us up here. That's saddening, it's frustrating, and I think it's insulting to a certain extent. And I think, Mayor, we need to figure out a way to get a handle on this. We need to understand we cannot police our way out of this, we cannot jail our way out of this. We need to figure out ways where we can address those social ills that are creating these conditions. We got to stop playing checkers and reacting. We got to start playing chess, looking 3 or 4 or 5 moves down the line. We know it. We know where it's going to happen, We know who's going to happen to. We don't have to be a rocket scientist or a nuclear physicist to figure it out. We can put up a map and pinpoint where these kinds of activities are going to happen. We can look at demographics and almost figure out who it's going to happen to, who both the victims and perpetrators are. But yet and still, we won't spend any time talking about it, won't discuss it, won't even bring it up, won't even raise it. What we do, we get embarrassed or upset when it's reported on. Not the fact that it's happened. How dare you report that? How dare you talk about this happening? I mean, times we got upset about Benny coming down here expressing his concerns. Reverend Johnson got more upset and more concerned about his expression of it than the things that he was expressing, concerned about. We just want to shut him up and get him quiet. Let's stop the stuff that he's down there complaining about. I think it's sad, it's frustrating, it's insulting. I can't think of anything else to say. I mean, I just think about those young people and the families of those young people and what we're sending, the message that we're sending was a normal culture in certain parts of our community is unacceptable, it's offensive, it's maddening, it makes me angry, it upsets me. And I think about that just as much as some of us thought about First Tee in the last couple of days. That's my point, man. I don't mean to get on a soapbox, but that's been too upsetting to me. I just cannot. Good
point. Here. Good point. Black man. Very good. You know, we have a $50,000 reward out, obviously trying to track down the perpetrators of these heinous crimes, and certainly I know we all are very concerned about what impact it has on our community. I have another card that was just turned in for citizen communication. So before we get away from that, then I'll go ahead and recognize Vicki Hatter looks like it's on a related issue.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vicki Hatter, and Director Richardson touched on what I was going to talk about. It is the crime, and personally, my son knew 2 of the 5 that was murdered this past weekend, and also I was out talking with young people between the ages of 14 to 25 to better understand what is going on and how can we as community leaders and then of course the city, right, as directors, how can we move forward, right, to treat the root of the problems and finding out that and some of the things that was brought out, and then it was lack of jobs for our in general. And then it is each its own to where our youth and individuals, they are feeling left out. They talked about possible apprentice programs, and then where they are able to go and gain a trade. Also, what I got out of it was life and soft skills, and I think that this will. If we equip our youth correctly, if we engage our youth correctly, 25 and under, then I believe that we will be able to equip them to make better conscious decisions and deal with conflict resolution. And 2, our prevention and intervention programs. Different cities, of course, have done these programs, and they have been very, very successful. I know in various cities that I lived in, and I've been a part of youth leadership initiatives, where we tackled some of these issues that I've talked about. And so right now, our youth is feeling hopeless. They are feeling like there is nowhere to turn. No one cares. And so if we are serious about dealing with the crime issue, then we're going to have to look at the lack of jobs, better resources, right, to educate, and then 2 with conflict resolution. And so that is what I wanted to touch on. We do not want to see more murders in such large quantities in short bursts, right, as we are seeing now. So I am willing to work with any one of you guys to help either develop or strengthen programs to tackle this issue, because it's a serious issue and we can't keep sweeping it under the rugs and sending out prayers and thoughts, because it just continues. That's it. Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Hatter. Of course, there are many programs the city has, and not to belabor the point, but certainly a program implemented last year that I think overall, certainly the events of last weekend were very tragic, but overall we've seen some great response to the reduction in violence and crime in general over the past year. Certainly the issue of jobs is very important, and I would commend you to our community programs department to work with them. Well, there's a good grid. There are jobs available, but people have to show up for work, and they have to be drug-free, and they got to be able to put a sentence together. And so those are very important elements, and we can help with all of those kinds of things if people want to get the help. We have VOTEC programs we work with the schools on. We've got our after-school programs. Conflict resolution is very important, and I know that I've talked with Mike Poore in our school superintendent about the importance of having programs like that in our public schools as well, because that's where you want to try and address the issue before it gets onto the street. So again, I would recommend that you get with our community programs people and visit with them, and the Good Grid has a whole list of jobs and agencies that are willing to help young people with these kinds of things. So I appreciate your interest, and I hope that, and I know all of the board members here would be happy to follow up with you specifically on that as well. So thank you for your attention to that issue. I know it's of great and grievous concern to all of us.
Mayor.
All right, yes.
I'd like to ask the city manager if he could have our community program staff prepare a report on our youth master plan implementation, where we are, if there's some things that we need to do differently. I know she was rolling out various programs and where they are. What do we need to do in addition to what we've already funded? And if there is anything that she feels that she needs in order to better address some of this. I know we did have conflict resolution. I know we have the street team. I'm not sure how that would have impacted in this situation, but if we could just have a report on where we are so we know where we need to go. Thank you.
Director Richardson.
Yes, Mayor. Just 2 quick points. I understand the need of planning. I'm not a big fan of planning. I think we do too much planning and not enough action. And I think when we do plan, we have the wrong people at the table, which lends itself to my point about the improper diagnosis. And improper diagnosis lends itself to an improper prescription. And Mayor, your point about employment, without an intermediary agency that can verify the points you just made, I think what we're doing is making excuses for someone not reaching their goals and making their goals. They're not reaching their goals because the young people are not showing up on time. They're not reaching their goals because the young people are using drugs. How do we know that? Has anyone done any kind of evaluation to determine that what they claim is true? We can make, those things are the easiest thing to claim and sometimes the hardest things to prove. If we don't have an intermediary involved with trying to make sure that those are correct, actual factual statements. So I take issue with that, Mayor, about kids are not employed because they don't show up on time or they're not on drugs. I think that's one of the most disturbing generalizations that we can have, especially if we can't prove it. Where's that proven?
There are several organizations out here who will document what is necessary in order to achieve a job, and we don't need to belabor the point, but I mean that's fairly self-evident. And we've got job fairs, we've got lots of things that are available, and I the challenge is communicating with the public and making sure that they are aware of those things.
And all those folks are getting city dollars. I don't want to belabor it, Mayor. I hear what you're saying, but all those folks are contracted with the city, and their contracts are dependent upon meeting goals that are set out by the city, and sometimes those goals are interwoven, and a lot of times those goals are not designed for the best interest of the people that we're using these fundings to address, to help. I mean, it's a certain population that we need to address with these funding. When the PIT was established back in '93 with Future Little Rock, it was designed for a specific group, a specific population. It wasn't designed to engage Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. I'm not saying that's what we're doing now, but it was designed to engage a specific population to address public safety. And that was in correlation with adding another 135 new police officers, 45 each year, to combat criminal activity. Because we tried before a single sales tax to increase police jail size. It didn't work. Tried it again, and we came back with Future Little Rock in '93 and said we're going to add PIT to this. So it's designed to engage a certain group, a certain population. That's not the easiest to engage, but they're the ones who cause us the most problems. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. I'm not the smartest one up here. Doc, you are the smartest, but I am smart enough to recognize that. I am smart enough that I know we need to talk to them. We need to have programs that are designed to engage them, not programs that are supportive of programs that we support or that our friends are operating that our friends support. That becomes self-serving, it becomes ineffective, and it lends itself to some of the crazy stuff we saw. That is crazy what we saw this past 4 or 5 days. That is absolutely crazy. And I just wonder, Mayor, I'm not sure if this would be the case, but if it happened north of 630, we had that same kind of, oh, it's just over there. Maybe we had an emergency press conference after a shooting downtown. Have we had one since then? I don't think so, because we told the community that would not be accepted down here. That's an aberration. But somehow, someway, we can accept it in other parts of our community. That's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. I'm not going to belabor it anymore, Mayor. That's just my point. That's how I feel about it.
Director Hines, you're recognized.
We're about to go on to the agenda. Or do you have another card?
People keep adding cards. So,
All right,
if
it has
you're ready-
nothing to do with citizen communication. I'll hold.
Cheryl?
Yes, I did not prepare to speak. It's just that everybody seems to have a negative, I would think, view as to what the programs that are available for children. I know that they're working. I also know that we, with the city of Little Rock, have been conducting parent meetings and children meetings at probably 4 libraries. And in doing this, their night, parents are showing up as best they can. We may be targeting certain neighborhoods where they're being bused out of their neighborhoods, but we're trying to make sure that they're available for training. Workforce has given us a lot of materials. They have come out as if it's their program. And one that I really loved is the one for dropouts 18 to 20. It started yesterday. They have an opportunity to make $150 1 week. You have to be 18 to 20. There are programs available. You have to be available yourself to get the information, to give it to the parents, and to give it to the children. What we have chosen with the City of Little Rock community programs is to have both at the meetings. That way we are assured of success. We're not having separate meetings. We have parent meetings with children and parents. There are programs that are working. You just need interested persons to work the program. And another feature, a book that we're using, teaching in the high schools right now, is Career Watch. We take the children to, excuse me, I didn't prepare to be here. Page 7 of this particular book, which is very popular. We're placing this book in the hand of every kid and parent that is in these sessions with us. Again, workforce collaboration. Page 7, Hot 45, Arkansas 218 to 219, demand occupations. High skills, some occupations. Moderate skills, some occupations. Basic skills, some occupations. And my favorite, no formal education. Several occupations available to children with no formal education. I thank you this evening. I did not plan to be before you, and my fervor for children and parents, I think all of you know how I feel about children. In particular, right now, another neglect. Children in our public schools have a lot of court cases. You have a lot to be concerned about. Thank you.
Director Wright, do you want to respond to that issue? Yes, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to respond to something Cheryl said, and you are correct. We are trying. We are rolling out a program with Goodwill, first of the year.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. We're starting, well, actually, we're...
Community programs, the mayor, regardless of the negative that you see, there are soldiers out there.
Thank you.
And we're getting the job done.
Well, we'll be rolling out our program with Goodwill, Mayor, and they will be coming to the center, providing job training, and this is something I did not know that they had. Do you all know that a forklift driver only requires a minimum amount of training, and they can get you hired immediately? I know that there are jobs at the port where they're begging for employees. So we have the West Central Job Link. We have our job kiosk at the community center, and Goodwill will be coming in one day a month, and they will be hosting these trainings and providing this information. And in February coming up, we will be having the City of Little Rock job fair there. So there's a lot going on.
They'll be at also the Wright Avenue Center. Also,
yes.
To be there as well.
Yeah, they told me about that they were doing this elsewhere, and they called me and they said they wanted to come out and do this. And I of course, I'm jumping up and down because this is something we don't have to hire anybody to do. They're going to come in and provide the services. So I'm hoping that we can get the word out to our young people that this information is available, and I'd like to utilize the street team and put them in some of my hot spots, areas where I know I have a lot of young people, if you would allow me to do that. and they can put the flyers out there in the neighborhood. They can go in and talk to some of these young people. I've sent them over in certain areas, and they've been successful in getting some situations under control. But I do want the young people to know about this job training opportunity and the jobs that are available to them. Thank you.
Thank you. One more card, Robert Webb, on the issue of crime.
I'm gonna be brief. Good evening, Mayor, City Board, City staff. I think the thing that concerns me more about the whole conversation is, it seems like whenever we have these conversations, it's more about what we're doing and not about the real issue. The real issue is we got our kids dying in these streets. That's the issue. They don't care about the program. Now, the programs are great, don't get me wrong, but unfortunately, you put your money where your priorities are. And that's obvious, right? You got a $100 million police budget. PIT is still $5 million since '94. It hadn't increased once. Now, it increased because you added officer entry in the skills center, but the same money you spent for prevention and intervention and treatment in '94, that's the same money you spend in 2018. That's not correct. So you spend, that's the thing. I mean, if it's not correct, then prove it. The problem is that we always talk about how we're doing these things, but if we still got kids dying, those things ain't working. I'm sorry, y'all. In 2008, my cousin was murdered, and it changed my life. And let me tell you why, because I've never been on that side before. I'd always been the guy who go to the house and had a conversation, give them my condolences, but it's totally different when somebody come to your house. So for you to sit here and say to me, or not to say anything at all, is disheartening to me. It's as though you don't care, right? Now, let me give you a great example of why I say that. In 2010, Gatewood, and I can't think of the other kid who was killed on 12th Street. You had two young black males killed on 12th Street. Not one of you said a word. The white guy was killed on 12th Street. You had a press conference. You had all the black folks who were absconders. They were rounded up and taken back to jail. That's what y'all did. And Mayor, you actually went to the meeting because I showed up. You went to a meeting down at the old State House, had a conversation. David Johnson was a state senator then. David Johnson, yourself, Max Brantley. You had this big town hall and open discussion about crime in our city. That's because a white young man was killed, not because of two black men that got killed a month before them. My question is people say it looks racist. I ain't going to say it looks racist because I don't know if you're racist or not. But what I am going to say, it looks like you don't care because you care for one, but you don't care for the other. It looks like you don't care. That's all I can say. It looks like you don't care. Again, you put your money where your priority is. You ain't putting no money south of 630. You put your money where your priority is. That's it. You put your money where your priority is. And it seems as though we are not your priority. When by we, I mean folks south of 630. We are not your priority. Now, I hope you don't get upset with me, but I got much love. But again, show us some of the same love we show y'all. Peace.
That concludes our cards. Anybody who knows me knows that as all of these members of the board, we care about every life in this city. And you do a great disservice by making those insinuations. All right, we can now move on to resolution number 7. Yes. Director Hines.
I need to recuse from the first T discussion and vote I serve on the board.
All right, very well. Okay. If we could, Madam Clerk, if you would, please read resolution number 7.
A resolution to appropriate $160,000 for the operation of the First Tee program until December 31st, 2018 to ratify previous agreements between the City of Little Rock, Arkansas and the First Tee of Central Arkansas to accept at this point an agreement between the World Golf Foundation, Inc. and the First Tee of Central Arkansas for the operation of the First Tee program within the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to direct completion of contractual relations between the City and the First Tee of Central Arkansas during the first quarter of 2019 and for other purposes.
All right, very well. I'm not sure if there is actually an applicant for this. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? Second. All right, there's a motion and a second. Discussion. I've got several cards on this item. And is there someone as the representative of First Tee? Okay, let me go ahead and let you make a presentation, and then we'll get into the cards. Yes, Director Campiris.
Before we start, Tom, I've got a question for you. So that we all have a basic understanding, or at least I have a basic understanding, because I'm tired of reading all the things that I've put out. Definitively, do we own the golf course, and do we have a responsibility for caring for that? And have we had, and how long, if we do, how long has that been our responsibility?
Yes, 1999.
So unequivocally, your feeling is it is a city piece of property since 1999.
You think it's been a city piece of property since 1994. It was purchased as park property for a West Little Rock Park as a part of the 1992 capital improvement bond issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Laura?
Good evening. Let me just set a little bit. My name is Laura Nix, and I am the Executive Director of the First Tee of Central Arkansas. We are a 501c3 nonprofit youth development organization. 4 years ago, I was tasked with two objectives. First, increase the number and diversity of our participants between the ages of 5 and 18 that attend our youth development programming. Second, make the chapter financially stable. Since 2014, the number of children who attend programming has increased from 4,271 to 15,541. This year, 51% of our participants are in a minority classification and 49% are female. Growing our program was fairly easy. The First Tee curriculum is ranked as one of the best youth development programs in the nation. However, making the chapter financially stable has been much more difficult due to the financial burden of running a City of Little Rock golf course and facility. Out of 145 First Tee chapters, the City of Little Rock is fortunate enough to have the best facility in the nation. Between 1999 and 2001, the city was gifted a 7,000 square foot learning center and a complete renovation of the 110 acres currently known as the Jack Stevens Youth Golf Academy. To make this happen, the Stevens family donated over $6 million and paid for the operation of the facility and the golf course for over 10 years. Now, before I begin answering questions, because I know there are some, I would like everyone who took their time out of their holiday week in support of the First Tee of Central Arkansas to please stand up. I would like to thank each of you for your support of our programming and of our staff. And we truly appreciate each and every one of you and the time you took to come out here tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you, City Directors and Mayor Studela. I am happy to answer any questions that you have for me.
Okay, let me see if there's any questions for you at this time, Laura. Director Adcock?
No, my question's for Mr. Carpenter.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Nix? All right, we can go move on to the other cards, and then we'll take questions and comments from board members. The first card I have to speak against the resolution is from Mr. Russ Raycop.
Earlier in November, I sent an email out to the board, and it was when documents I'd obtained through the FOI about First Tee and some questions I had. And one of the documents I had, they had they only listed one agency that they were partnering with. And I don't have that particular document in front of me, but it was in his Image Youth Development Center. And as I sent to the board, that center shuttered its doors on August the 1st. And there was no mention of any other agency they were partnering with. Also questioned some of their outreach numbers, and I noticed that there wasn't anything about that because they had participants, as been discussed. They had like 700 and some odd members of Little Rock citizens participating, and almost equal amount of folks from outside the city that were using the program. But they had this outreach number that was like 6,000 and something. And, I'd like to know what that outreach figure is. Is that, it's kind of like my YouTube channel has the potential of reaching millions of people, but only maybe 5 people may watch a particular video or 15. Now, I can claim I have an outreach, but, the people you actually reach may be much lower. Now, I know that this has some support from folks, but I know in our ward, Director Wright, we've had people up here at the board complain about work in their neighborhood. One that lives right around the corner from you has been complaining to City Hall for 20 years about the drainage in their streets. And Director Wright was honest and told them, we don't have the money to do that. Now, we have a West End Park in our neighborhood, and that's an old historic park. And there's a pavilion out there, and that pavilion has had a chain link fence around it for years. And people can't use that park. It's a place where people played football and baseball, and there's basketball courts that's used by that neighborhood. And we don't have the funding to fix that pavilion or tear it down or do whatever it is. I don't think we can tear it down because I think it's a historic structure, but there's a chain link fence that keeps people from going there and getting killed by it collapsing. We have programs like Director Richardson has been mentioning for years that we've cut the funding out for. Programs that mentored and dealt with these problems that we have, like Mr. Webb has mentioned tonight, where we're not reaching those the people that are involved in that, And it's time for these dog and pony shows to end. And I'll end with this. We have other needs of budgetary funding. And if this program can't support itself, then it needs to be shut down. We have other golf courses that could adapt this. We talked about golf courses are closing down. Those questions have been answered. I think this needs to be tabled until that goes. But we do have other needs in the city. We have potholes. I hear my mother, 86-year-old mother, who only drives to church at St. James United Methodist and to the beauty shop, complain every Friday about the potholes that are on Green Mountain Drive. And I've seen the city go out there and patch them, and those patches don't stay. And I don't know what it takes to fix streets. That's not in Ward 6, but part of that is we have these troubles. And when you come in here for a program that has little benefit to most of the citizens in the city, we have other needs. Thank you.
We'll take all the cards, and then I'll give you a chance. Okay, the next card I have is from Rick Blank.
Now let Laura have my time. I wanted to speak on behalf of First Tee, and I'll just tell you that.
Well, I'm going to give her a chance to respond to any type of comments that have been made. So I'm just now all the cards I have now are for people who wish to speak in support of the resolution.
Okay. Well, I'm Rick Blank. I'm a board member at the First Tee. Have been for 4 or 5 years, and they do a tremendous service to the kids in this city. And yes, it's a golf course, but there's a programming aspect to it that is fabulous, and it needs the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blank. Arnold Kridget, did I pronounce that properly? Close?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you did. Thank you. I also didn't prepare. I am a board member at the First Tee, and I'm a volunteer as well. And I am extremely impressed by the program. I've been involved for many years, and I've seen with my own eyes the effect that Laura and Brad and the entire team have on children. It truly makes a difference, and it's much more about the life skills that I've heard earlier today too, that they're teaching than the actual act of teaching them how to play golf. So I truly hope you can support this resolution. Thank you.
No, thank you, Arnold. The next card I have is from Ray Dillon.
Mr. Mayor, City Directors, I'm Ray Dillon. I serve on the board of the First Tee and currently serve as their chairman. I can assure you that the First Tee and its staff is changing and affecting the lives of children that we serve each and every day. And there's not a more committed director than Laura Nix as far as reaching out to more and more children in our community. I would appreciate your support of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Is Mr. Flake here? John Flake? There he is.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. My name is John Flake. I'm a Little Rock resident. I promise you I'm not going to get you ill. I'm susceptible to illness, but I'm not giving illness. And I see Director Adcock and B.J. Wyrick here who have been so gracious of being in a prayer group for me during my recovery. I'm not here as a member of the board of First Tee. I have no affiliation with First Tee, but I'm here to support it. Dingham Puris and I have been together since first grade, and we grew up in athletics. And if you want to help the kids today, and again, I'm in my fourth quarter, but I can tell you that if you want to help children today, you give them something that gets them off the streets and into something that excites them. The First Tee does that. The tennis program for the city of Little Rock does that. Let them pick what they want, but give them the opportunity. I heard the director here tonight, which was a terrific statistic, Mayor. 51% of the people that are going to First Tee are minority. That's a great statistic. So I urge you tonight, vote for the kids tonight. This is a vote for the kids. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Flake. Monica Blake.
Good evening. I'm here as the program director of the First Tee, and all I can speak to is the children that we interact with. As you all know, there's a need in our city, and First Tee is providing that need. I know golf provided a lot of opportunities for me, and I'm trying to seed that to the kids in our city. Our program is phenomenal. We're reaching so many kids and in so many different avenues, and I just thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. Chad Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Board. Here is a board member.
You pull that microphone just a little closer.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you for the opportunity. Fourth generation Little Rock resident, one who grew up going to city programming as a kid in the 80s down at Rebsamen. Was fortunate to have people like Jim Rath and other people that down there that volunteered their time, and think of the impact that they made on my life as a business owner in this community, as a father who has a son that participates in First Tee now. I think this program is absolutely amazing. I strongly hope that you will support this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Joe Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, board members. I'm Joe Hurst. I'm also on the board at First Tee, and I just wanted to quickly say that, you know, First Tee, I've been involved in First Tee now for about 4 years, and First Tee is a youth outreach program. It's we use golf as a tool for that. It is not a junior golf program. It is it's a youth opportunity program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. Austin Pfeiffer.
How's it going? I'm a level 2 coach with the First Tee. I'm new to golf, but what really made me buy in with this program is the curriculum that we are teaching. Level 2 means I've gone to 2 trainings to kind of go over this curriculum, and I really feel like we're making an impact on all the kids that are coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. Brad Martin.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've been at the First Tee for 13 years now. I'm the Director of Instruction, so I'm involved with most of the instruction given. So I've seen the outreach people that we've dealt with, and we have those numbers documented. I don't document them, but people do document them at the First Tee. Being able to see 15,000 kids this year through the school systems, through outreach program, through the couple hundred kids that come to our First Tee programming, and all summer long summer camps. I'm a blessed human being. I know that I'm making a difference. I know that the First Tee has great curriculum. I've seen no other curriculum like it at any other outreach development program that I've gone to in Little Rock, which is literally, we have 15 or 20 that we've done over the last couple of years when we've grown this outreach programming, as well as being in the Little Rock public school system. So please support us. We need your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Kendra Pruitt.
Hello, Mayor and City Directors. My name is Kendra Pruitt. I'm a local attorney here, and I serve on the board of First Tee for about 3 years now. And I just want to thank you guys for your time in hearing this resolution. We ask that you guys take serious consideration to approve this, because First Tee does great work in our city, as you've heard from so many different folks, and as you can see from the support that's here today. However, as a black female, I understand the importance and the concerns that we've heard today about crime, but I don't think taking money from a program that's trying to do good work for the youth is the solution for that. You don't have to be against First Tee to be against crime. And so I ask that you guys take serious consideration. I'm not a golfer myself. I've never played golf, or the little bit that I've done, I'm not very good. But what I do believe in First Tee is what it's doing for the youth and the programs that they talk about, the life skills that they teach as a result of the game of golf. The game of golf is used to do the more important work with the life skills, and we really need your support. We thank you guys for hearing us on today, and we appreciate an approval of this resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pruitt. Ms. Nix, I'll call you back up now if you have any response to the opposition that was raised.
I do, to Mr. Rakop.
If you'll just speak to us, please.
Sure. In response, hey, I was more than happy.
He'll hear you. He'll hear you from where you are.
I hope so. I take umbrage in the fact that he called out our outreach numbers. The way we get to do outreach is we go into the schools. We are there for a week, 2 weeks. Brad, Monica, Austin, they go to the schools. We see the kids 4 of the 5 days during the week. That's called outreach. And each school typically has around 300, 400 kids in it that we are going to see in a week's time, because we're there for the whole day doing the PE class. That's outreach. That's how we get kids to come to our regular programming. That's how we get kids off the streets. Teach them life skills that are very important. That's what we do. We're a youth development organization. We're teaching life skills. The very first lesson that each kid learns when they come to us, whether they're 5 or 18, is our First Tee code of conduct. Respect yourself, respect others, and respect your surroundings. And I feel that a lot of what has happened over this time period is you're looking at the programming and saying, we're asking you for funding for programming. We're not asking for funding for programming. We're asking you to fund the golf course and the facility that you already own. I can't raise enough money to fund your golf course, no matter how hard I try. It's not something that's going to happen. So you can either take care of your property that the City of Little Rock owns and allow us to do our programming there, or we will have to find another solution. And I'm asking you to please let the kids, if you've not been out to our facility, shame on you. Because you really should be out there, especially during the summertime when we have 100, 200 kids going through our programming, when they get to sit there and learn something they've never seen before in regards to golf course, how we take care of our golf course. The kids are fascinated by digging of a hole in the ground with a little cup, and our golf course superintendent takes time and sits down and explains things to them. Who knows? We may have future golf course managers in that group of kids. There's lots of programs that we do. Outreach is one of them. It's the way we bring in our kids to our regular programming. And that's the programming that the kids need who are committing the crimes in the city. Our regular life skills programming. And the more kids we can get into that, the better off the city will be. But again, the funding we are requesting is for the city-owned golf course. I can pay for our programming. I can cover the expenses of the coaches and the staff that stood up here and talked to you today. I cover my own expenses, but I cannot continue to afford to cover the City of Little Rock's golf course and facility.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Dix. That concludes the cards that we have. Director Adcock, you have a
Mr. Carpenter,
question.
Tuesday and again today, you have told me that we do not have a contract. After 27 years of sitting here, I know that we cannot spend the citizens of Little Rock's money without a contract. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table this until Mr. Carpenter gets the contract. He has assured me that he can have it before the end of the year. So I'll make a motion to table this.
Did I hear a second? There's a motion and a second. This is not a debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to table indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Roll call.
All right, roll call, please.
Director Wright,
Aye.
This is on the motion to table. A yes motion, an aye motion is to table it, and a nay motion is not to table it.
Table.
Director Wyrick, Director Campuris, Director Fortson, Director Adcock,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Webb, Mayor Stodola.
You can't
Oh,
vote.
he can't, sorry.
The motion to table has failed by a vote of 3-3. Oh, you didn't ask Director.
She called you out early.
What?
No, I didn't.
Well, hang on. Madam Clerk, did you call?
No, I still
Director
have
Peck?
Richardson and Peck.
What?
I still have Director Richardson and Director Peck.
All right, go ahead, please.
Director Richardson? No. Director Peck?
All right, by a vote of 3 yes and 5 nay, the motion has failed. All right. Vice Mayor Webb, you have a comment or question, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask John Eckert a question, please, if I may.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Eckert, Parks Director, please go forward.
Mayor, I questioned a 5-3 vote, and you said it failed. No did not get 6 votes.
But it takes 6 affirmative votes for a motion to pass, so you would have had to have 6 ayes for it to pass, otherwise it fails.
So with 5 votes, it can fail.
Yes, ma'am. It fails because you only had 3 positive votes, affirmative votes.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you. One of the questions that I think we raised last week and that you talked about is doing a study of the Little Rock golf courses. And I would just ask you, when is that going to be complete? And was First Tee figured into that study, or is it going to be figured into that study?
Yes, ma'am. That is, First Tee will be part of the study, and we have actually gone it to our purchasing department, and we should have it out by the end of this week. That is our goal, to have it's an overall study of all city-owned golf courses, which includes the First Tee.
And so we would have like recommendations by within the week?
No, ma'am.
If I could, so, if I may, Mayor. So what I did today was approve the RFQ committee. We have to have a committee that reviews the RFQ. I did that this afternoon. Then by state law, we have to advertise requests for qualifications for a certain period of time. But I did approve to just advertise it for 21 days. And so we're into the first quarter. because we get if we could get somebody, I'd have to bring that back first meeting in January or second meeting in January, and then it's a probably 45 to 60-day process review.
Thank you. I have one other question, but it's not for you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I guess, Bruce, this would be for you. I've heard a variety of numbers for how much the city has actually spent on First Tee. And as I've thought about this, I mean, it kind of does make a difference if we really are obligated to pay for this, but if we're putting it in context of our responsibilities, or as a city golf course, which is the other issue that we'll debate, I guess, when that study comes back. So how much actually have we put into First Tee this year?
Finance director come forward. And I think it's important we can give the total number, but I think we also give the number from operational standpoint and then from the capital standpoint.
Yeah.
And I assume that's not including what's before you tonight, right? Just what we've done year to date. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so expended year to date, there's $336,500 in operations, and then $115,000, which was for the HVAC system.
I don't remember the numbers from the budget program meeting, but what have we spent? Just another.
The budgeted number was $246,500, but our budget amendment that we did in mid-year had an additional $90,000, and then there was another expenditure of $40,000 in September.
Thank you.
60, that's it.
Is that Director Wright? You're recognized, please.
I've gotten a lot of calls on this. A lot of supporters of First Tee. I even talked to one of my, the program director for the 21st Century Learning Center grant that we have for middle school students. And she had arranged with First Tee for you all to come over and do some training with the kids. So I got a chance to observe what they were doing, and I talked with her afterwards, and I asked her if she felt that what she was getting was beneficial. And she told me yes. She felt that it taught them team building and that it training them in how to get along with each other, which we dearly need with this age bracket. I think this is a lot of money, but we do own this thing. I appreciate the fact that you can pay for your own programming, but this is our facility. I do have concerns about our other facilities, and I've expressed those to the city manager, and hopefully he'll get some of those things taken care of. I know we are developing a master plan for our Parks Department. I would like to sit down with the consultant and Mr. Eckert and his team to discuss the parks in Ward 6 so that we can discuss how we move forward with Union Park. We want to maintain the historic nature of that park. We do have a plan, and we just need it funded. So we need to see how that's going to fit into the master plan. When it comes to West Central and the sports, I've always shared with you, I've been very honest, I don't play sports. I have never played sports. I don't particularly like sports. Let's be clear. But I was convinced 14 years ago, kids like sports. You got to have something to get their attention. And that's what we do, sports. So that's how you get them off the street. That's why I want the gym full every night. That's why I want the after-school programs filled. Oh, and I do have some space, Ms. Hatter, if you would like to help recruit some middle school kids. I do have space, and it's free. And we're working on our transportation contract right now, Mr. Moore. It's free. And also, yes, our pool, Mr. Moore. You know, we were promised that. We need to begin that discussion, but that needs to be a part of the master plan moving forward, because that's how you get things done. You have a master plan. People are just not going to just throw money willy-nilly anymore. Those days are over. Whatever you do has to be a part of the big picture, the plan. We have that plan. So I need you all to understand that I'm going to support this with the understanding that we are going to move forward with our Parks Department. We're going to put the money in our Parks Department that we need to put in there. And we're going to go after every grant opportunity that exists on earth. If I got to write them myself, I don't mind doing that if we're short-handed. We have an excellent grant writing team. My goal is to get kids off the street. I got to start with the elementary and the middle school. Once they get up in high school, it's almost lost cause then. I don't know what to do at that point because they're grown. But elementary and middle school, which is our latchkey and our 21st century kids, I feel that we can reach those kids. And if they can be reached through First Tee programming, fine. I don't care because I'm not going to play any of it anyway. All I'm going to do is walk around and watch them. Okay? So I'm telling you that to let you know I do have concerns. But I'm more concerned about the kids. I'm more concerned about making sure there's every opportunity that they can get to be off the street. And if golf can do that, fine. I don't care. I just want it done. Thank you.
Director Richardson, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Point of clarification. This amount that we're talking about tonight is for reimbursement for purchase of equipment. Is that not correct? Tonight, what are we appropriating? Because I'm somewhat flummoxed because I thought I heard us say they don't get any funding from us for programming. Did I not hear that? So we don't.
Mr. Moore or Mr. Moore, do you want to respond?
This is for the operations and maintenance of the facility and the golf course.
Okay, but do they not charge us for PIT participation?
They do have a PIT contract, which is separate from this.
So about, I think, 2009 or 2010, we raised the golf fees $1 at all our municipal courses, and I think $1, or at least 50% of it, 50 cents of it went to First Tee. Is that not correct?
All
the full $1. So, Sarah, how much is that generating annually?
So,
and then you can answer, Bruce, if you want to, but once we get that figure, what are we utilizing those funds for?
So that generated on a good year about $90,000. And since we back a few years ago started just with their normal request through the outside agencies, we just folded that all in. So the dollar is still being charged at the golf course. But we don't just send that directly over to First Tee like we did originally. It's just part of the revenue.
And I guess one other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that First Tee is a public course as well. It's not just centered for or geared for young people. That the general public can play with it as well.
That's correct.
So with reference to the HVAC equipment, how does that fold into this conversation? Because I heard somebody make reference to that a couple of times about the purchase or reimbursement for the purchase of equipment. Is that not correct?
So the question that the Vice Mayor raised was how much we have expended with First Tee, and the number was broken out between operational and the capital. Again, it's a city-owned facility, just like any other city-owned facility. If there's a major capital item, we're responsible for expending the dollars to take care of it.
So I guess my other point of clarification, we are spending that, we are charging an extra dollar. The breakout on the usage of these funds, I didn't think I saw it in the resolution, nor have I seen any memo to explain that, to outline that to us, to give us further clarification. So as I said, Tom, I'm still somewhat flummoxed about this issue and the funding as it relates to proceeding with this.
Director Richardson, the $40,000 a month for the last 4 months of 2018 is what First Tee requested of the city for its funding. That is in the resolution. The $40,000 for September has already been given to First Tee, and this resolution ratifies that action.
And any contractual arrangements or agreements with Little Rock School District? I know that's a separate issue to help support the funding. I mean, Director Adcock made a suggestion last week that I thought was amazing and really interesting. I think she referenced the amount that we spend with First Tee is greater than, I think she made this point to John, greater than the combined amount of the rest of our municipal courses. So Claire, help me clarify.
That's not exactly accurate.
Well, that's what
she
I need you to tell me.
is we get revenues back from the other courses, so that the amount that we spend, once you subtract the revenues we get back, is less than First Tee. First Tee keeps the revenues.
So for municipal players, that those dollars stay at First Tee. And we're still continuing.
First Tee players.
Yeah, right, I got you. So we're still continuing the extra dollar at Hyman and Reserman and War Memorial. We're still charging an extra dollar, and we're still shifting that over to First Tee.
Correct. Again, it's part of the revenue that's generated from the golf courses, and that goes toward our allocations for First Tee also.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Bruce.
Director Wyrick, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Moore, we've got a breakdown of the money that's allocated for the last quarter of the year. It was $168,000, but First Tee is asking for $160,000. Is this representative of every quarter of the year that we as a city will have to pay to take care of our property? Because that's $640,000. And the reason I agreed with Director Adcock to table this until we got a contract, we need to know what our responsibilities are and what our cost is. And so that's the reason why I seconded to table it until we had a contract that everybody understood. But $640,000 is what I'm seeing that if we continue the way we are, that's what we're going to spend next year and the next year and the next year.
Well, again, I think that as John outlined, we're going to have an RFQ out by the end of the month, hopefully, that examines all of our golf course operations. Should the city be operating 4 golf courses? I mean, I think that's a question that has to be answered. And again, First Tee is going to be part of that equation. Also, this resolution says that within the first 90 days, we're supposed to have a contract, which, again, my thought is that we should be able to have the recommendations from the consultant during that period. So this doesn't obligate the city to fund First Tee at $40,000 a month in 2019.
Well, it looks like there's some months that are more than 40,000. Like September, it was 55, almost 56,000. October, it was 46,000. And then the other 2 months, it was 36,000 and less.
Which is very similar to what we see. As you know, golf is a seasonal sport, and it fluctuates based on weather and temperatures, and so that's something we internally see also a lot.
How does the $640,000 relate to the costs for some of our other golf courses? Are they more expensive than the $640,000?
Well, again, it goes back to expenditures versus revenue, and I think Tom outlined that just a few minutes ago, that we do generate revenue at our golf courses that offset the expenditures. But we also subsidize all 3 of our golf courses.
So I was ciphering over here, so I missed part of that. Yeah, I was ciphering. So I missed part of that discussion. But someone asked the question about do grown-ups use this golf course, and where does that money go to?
Certainly, you can answer that question.
So in regard to the 640,000, it actually cost us around 600 and 2,000 to 20,000 a year to run the golf course and facility. 100 to 10 to 120,000 we make off the golf course. So that lowers the amount of money that we are required to ask of the city to compensate us for the remainder of running the golf course and facility.
So if you didn't have the grown-ups playing golf, then this dollar amount would be more? Is that what you're saying?
The dollar amount would be similar to the number, like 600 to 2,000, 600 and 2,000.
Oh,
we don't have a lot of expenses in January, February. Expenses pick up in March. They get really high in June, July, and August, obviously for reasons like water, chemicals, and then they start to taper off again in October, November, December. Obviously, revenues also are lower during those periods of time.
Okay, I apologize for asking that question again.
No, that's no problem. And I did want to say one thing. I do have something that might be of interest. I actually can I have information from 2015, 2016, and 2017 in comparison for the 4 golf courses. I'm going to throw Rebsamen out because it's definitely an outlier in the golf course. It makes up a lot of the money that you have to spend for the other courses. But the average cost or expenses on War Memorial over those 3 years was $620,000 a year. For Heineman, it was $631,000 a year. At the First Tee, we have averaged $523,000 a year over those same 3 years. So we are actually spending less. This year is an anomaly because we got reimbursed for the HVAC system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director Campiris, you're next, please.
Go ahead, Ken, if you want to.
Director Campiris? Well, I've got other people in front of both of you. Director Fortson, you're next, please. I've got the control thing up here, so I'm going to take them in the order. So you're, well, he had already pressed his. Director Fortson, you're next, please.
As most of you know, I have some experience in operating golf courses. And Mr. Moore has made the point 2 or 3 occasions that we're operating at the present time 4 courses. And the cost of operating a course is dependent upon weather, usage, nature, a lot of things which are not controllable. Golf itself does teach a lot of life lessons, and I've tried to play golf in my adult life. I'm sort of like, I think Ms. Pruitt said, I'm not very good. Realized a long time ago I would not be very good, and so I became more of a spectator than a participant. But it is an activity that we have offered through our Parks and Recreation at several different levels. But we're at several different venues. As I understand what Mr. Carpenter said in answer to Director Campiris' comment at the very beginning, that we own the First Tee course in the same way that we own Rebsamen, Heineman, and War Memorial. Is my understanding correct, Mr. Carpenter?
It is, Director Fortson. I think we own First. I don't know exactly how we got Heineman and War Memorial and Rebsamen, but we got First Tee through a bond issue for a parks purpose. So that does put an emphasis on the city.
So we do own 4 courses, which we have supported the maintenance on for some time, regardless of the vehicle, and we have a given purpose. But right now, Mr. Moore, as was pointed out, is beginning a study of those 4 going forward and everything, and we know that is going to take place in the new year. But right now we're dealing with our obligation as I understand it, to something we own, admittedly, and something for which we have historically paid the maintenance. And
Oh, that's not accurate.
sir,
Here's what happened. We got the first tee, we had the land, Stevens paid for it. That's basically it. And then their support of First Tee, which is still present, was not as great. And they've gotten along. In 1999, when we signed the contract, we had the right to set the budget annually, and we've essentially let the First Tee do that. And so what we've got is the budget for First Tee being decided by them as opposed to by this board. And in that sense, yeah, I mean, they've said this is what they need towards the end of the year, and we've basically deferred to them for however many years this thing has been, 19 years, I guess, this has been in place. And they're at the end of this year. That's where we are.
well, maybe I didn't ask the question properly or state it properly, but the point being, regardless of what clothing you put on it, we have been paying the maintenance on First Tee as well as the other three courses. Is that correct?
My understanding is no. My understanding is we didn't pay anything for the first several years.
Your understanding is what?
We didn't pay anything with First Tee for the first
10
several
years.
years.
First 10 years it was
Right.
done by the Stevens.
Right. But since that time, we have been paying the maintenance on something we own.
We had been providing funds to them.
Right. And we own it like we own the others.
Always owned it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Director Adcock, you're next, please.
I'll wait.
Director Richardson, you're next, please.
All right, thank you, Dean. Mayor Sarah, one quick question. Ms. Nix gave us some figures that I'd like to get some accuracy on to see if, in fact, what she presented to us were actual and factual dollars with respect to operational costs. Because, Bruce, I still didn't understand what the extra dollar per golf course would generate for the city. I still don't think I understood your annual answer to that. What are we getting from that annually from the additional dollar at War Memorial, Hyman, and Rebsamen? So maybe Sarah can speak to that, and then Sarah overall can speak to those numbers that Ms. Nix just rattled off.
As you all are aware, for years we had a Parks and Recreation bond. And the first revenues of all of our park facilities, which included the golf courses, were dedicated to debt service on the bonds. The numbers that she's quoting include $336,000 debt service on Parks and Recreation bonds. The actual cost of the course, when you exclude those bonds, which we've now refunded, that generated the $1.7 million in savings to our budget. Now, the net cost, which means expenses minus revenues, there's still additional expense, of our 3 golf courses that are operated by the city is a taxpayer burden of $250,000 per course. The First Tee costs between $400,000 and $600,000, depending on the request.
So that's, rather than being just comparable, that's almost twice as much.
It is this year. Now, this is a new day. As Mr. Moore said, in the past, we charged $1 per round of golf.
Sure.
We remitted whatever that was, which in a good year was $90,000.
Okay.
Now that $90,000 contributes toward meeting the request. But the request has gone from $246,000 to, if this is paid, it'll be $611.
611.
And that includes the $115 for the HVAC.
Okay, I understand that, the 115 for the HVAC. So Bruce, help me understand, how are we going to do an analysis or an assessment of our golf courses with having one of those, First Tee, have a somewhat restrictive use, as opposed to the other three not having that kind of restricted use? How does that factor into any kind of evaluation or objective assessment?
Sure. I think that, and I've approved the language of the RFQ, that we're going to ask someone that's very well versed in golf operations. In fact, I initially explored the team that's doing the master plan to see if they could add that to the list. And John and I, after talking, we really feel like we need somebody with that expertise in golf. So I think, clearly what we're saying is all things are on the table. There's no sacred cows. And let's come in here, review what we're doing, review the overall game of golf, the trends, and make recommendations on what the city needs to do going forward.
Okay, thank you. Dean, thank you for deferring your time. I'm sorry to put you so far back down the line, but thank you.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
And Mr. Moore, when do you expect to have this report? I'd hate to put you on the spot, but,
So again, I'm going to advertise it for 21 days, hopefully starting next week. Hopefully we can get something done as far as a firm named by the end of the year, and then I think it's 45 to 60 days.
45 to 60 days for the work?
Correct.
Okay, so we would be into the spring.
Correct.
Okay, now, of course, in December, we got to pass our 2019 budget. What is this new contract going to obligate us to, Mr. Carpenter, given the fact that Mr. Moore is commissioning this report that we should be utilizing before we put any other contracts in place beyond 2019?
Sure. I think, and I was very clear with in our conversations with the mayor and Tom today, that I believe before we enter into any contract in 2019, we need to have the analysis done from the consultant.
So we're not going to sign a contract with First Tee for 2019 until we get this analysis?
Correct.
So this is just to get us through to the end of the year?
Correct. But again, because the city owns the golf course and the facility, we do intend to have some allocation for the beginning of the year in the 2019 budget.
And you will be providing that to us?
Correct.
So that we can clearly understand what we're looking at?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Director Adcock.
Mr. Moore, how much are you putting? I know you've got your budget just about done. How much have you put in the budget for the first quarter for First Tee of 2019?
Director Adcock, I don't almost have it done. So
this is November, the end of November, and we have to pass that budget within 2 or 3 weeks. So I would assume you've got enough done to know what you put in there for First Tee.
I'm not hesitating. I'm really continuing looking at all our revenue, but from my standpoint, if this resolution passes, then at this point it's about $40,000 a month, or maybe lower. But I'll talk to Ms. Nix and come up with a figure to try to plug in for the first 90 days.
And Ms. Nix used the fact that how low her cost is on her golf course in comparison with your three. But isn't First Tee only 1/2 the size of the other golf courses? I'm not a golfer, but somebody says 18 holes and 9 holes, so I would assume.
Let me ask John. I couldn't tell you that.
It's 18.
It's 18 holes, but it's.
John, so those of us who don't play golf, the 9-hole golf course is only half the size of the 18-hole. Is that correct?
Roughly, yeah. Yes, ma'am. But it is a full 9-hole course and a shorter par 3 course, which is acreage-wise is going to be less than half.
How many acres do you have at your 3 golf courses?
300 total.
That you have to keep mowed and clean. How many acres does it have?
It's between 250 and 300 total.
For the
between
3?
All 3 courses, yeah.
Okay. And do you know how many acres First Tee has?
I do know. 110.
Okay. So is that about equivalent to War Memorial?
War Memorial's in the 60 range. Hyman's going to be 85, 90, and then Rebsamen's 120.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Director Campiris, you're recognized, please.
Well, a couple of points. Number one, when we talk about First Tee, we're talking about a golf course, not a program. So the program is being funded independently, working out of our golf course, bringing kids to our golf course, teaching things at our golf course that we're paying zero for. Is that right? We have no expense that we're paying for that. I'm excluding that, but I'm talking about the programs that they sponsor are in addition to our PIT money. Is that correct? Bruce, is that correct? Secondly, 3 of us at least were at the dedication where we were given a gift of a golf course by a family in this town, with the understanding that it was, as Tom said, parkland that they spent the money for developing. Now, let's just assume that there's some inflation, things happen, but let's just assume that it costs $500,000 a year to run that golf course. Is that a fair assumption? For 10 years, we paid zero. For 10 years, someone stepped up and took care of this city and a golf course to teach our kids life lessons and teach them how to play golf and appreciate golf. So we're talking about $160,000 where someone put up roughly $5 million to take care of us. Now, for the other 9 years, they didn't go away. There was a sliding scale of money given to First Tee because we never have, up until this year, to my knowledge, paid for all that we expensed out there on our golf course. And it is, to me, crazy that we talk about a program that Doris can verify works, that they talk about. We talk about, all of us, Joan, Doris, myself, are always asking for people in the private community to help us take care of things. Doris had a group of 60 business people, 6 months ago. Cappy provided the food for it to try to say, come help us at West Central to do it. I do the same thing downtown. Joan has the annual village that she asks people for, and all of us have projects we're constantly asking people to help for. I think what Ken said tonight is very poignant. All of us want to try to make this city better, and the only way to do it is through public-private partnerships. And in order to ensure those, we need to support the people that are supporting us. And the kicker in this deal is we're not talking about a program tonight. We're talking about a golf course that we own, that we've done little to none to take care of for 19 years. Now, I agree with Joan. I would like to be able to follow the documents on here, but you can't. If anybody, I'm sure someone, a forensic lawyer, can go through there and figure out what's going on. But it's a moot point. We have 10 years of a free ride. We've had 9 years of a sliding scale ride. And it's time for us to step up, accept our responsibilities, move on with this, have Bruce get the study done in the first quarter, and then let's figure out what we're going to do. A sound of 200,000 doesn't need 4 golf courses. So I'm going to call the question, and then let's move on with this.
Well, that's the last comment. So there's been a motion and a second to approve this. Madam Clerk, read the roll, please.
Motion and a second to call the question.
I know, and the question's been called and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. That's the last I was calling. I believe me, I understand Robert's Rules of Order. Madam Clerk, read the roll, please.
Director Wright? Yes. Director Wyrick? Director Campuris? Director Fortson? Yes. Director Adcock? Vice Mayor Webb? Director Hendricks? Oh, I'm sorry. Director Richardson? Director Peck?
By a vote of 6-2, the resolution is passed. Thank you all very much, and certainly I hope we got another Tiger Woods coming at First Tee, but and more importantly, the lessons that you're teaching kids are so very, very valuable, and I'm glad I didn't have to vote, but I would have voted for you. Thank you.
Director Hines can return.
Yes, Director Hines may return. However, there is no more items on our agenda. I will make a couple of announcements first. Director Adcock, I'll recognize you.
As soon as it quiets down in here, please.
What?
As soon as it quiets down in
Hey.
here, please.
Rick? Yeah, sure. Okay, if we could have a little quiet, we're not quite finished yet. We're not quite finished yet. Okay, Director Adcock.
Yes. Mayor and Board, the Animal Village is having a blanket and towel drive. We have lots of cold little animals, and we're having to throw away all those summer blankets, and we need winter blankets, bedspreads, quilts, and towels. So if you would please, if you have these in your home and you would like to share them with the animals, please take them to your local fire station, and they will call us and we will go pick them up, or either you can bring them to the Animal Village and look for a new friend to adopt, so you have a new pet in your home for Christmas time. I will tell you that this morning we sent 37 cats to Dallas, Texas, and yesterday morning we sent 26 dogs to Wisconsin. So we're trying to share with other states our animals, but we have plenty for y'all to have a new pet for Christmas time. So if you have blankets, bedspreads, quilts, and towels, they can be new or used. Please think of the animals at the village.
Thank you, Director Adcock. You'll notice, Director Campuris.
One thing, Tom, would you write a very simple resolution to be ready for next week so we can vote it on the 3rd, whenever we meet, stating that this board is the first order of business in January of next year. We'll start formulating the ideas of how to form a year-long study about the form of government. We talked about doing it. We just need to get it on the table before we have an election so everybody knows what we're doing.
And you want that on which agenda?
I want it on the agenda meeting next week so we vote on it.
On the 11th?
No, so we vote
on the 3rd?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Director Campuris has asked for a resolution to be voted on that indicates that there will be to place, I guess this resolution is to acknowledge placing a resolution on the very first meeting.
No, to start, we're going to have the resolution saying we're going to start in January a process.
Okay.
To how we formulate a year-long study on the form of government, and that is open on how anybody. This has got no preconceived idea about how we do it, the format or anything. But I just want the community to know before the election that this is going to be something we're doing.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter, you're going to have that? All right. Very good. Mr. Moore has handed out the extraterritorial jurisdiction growth study that we've embarked on for the last several months. Mr. Moore, when do you wish to see that we discuss this matter?
Mayor and members of the board, this is going to go to the informal meeting of the Planning Commission that they have on the 29th. So it's going to be posted, I think, on their webpage later this week. So that's why I wanted to get you a copy of it. Once they have those discussions or those presentations, I plan on scheduling one with the consultants with the city board.
Before the end of the year?
I'm going to try. It's just, I mean, we're running out of Tuesdays, but we're I think it's important to see what type of feedback we get at the Planning Commission on the 29th and then assess maybe some additional public meetings before it comes to the board. But we're not asking for any action at this point before the end of the year.
Okay, so
Here you go, Rachel.
we have an agenda meeting coming up next Tuesday on the 27th. We will have a board meeting on Monday, December 3rd. We will recess that meeting on December 11th. We will have employee evaluations of Mr. Moore and Mr. Carpenter on December 11th. So put that on your calendars. And then we will have a meeting on December 18th. And Mr. Moore and I will be presenting the budget well, we're working on the date exactly. It'll be either, hopefully the 11th, perhaps the 18th. And if we need to, we'll move to the. All right, everybody, I'll go through those dates again. November 27th is an agenda meeting. December 3rd is a board meeting that's a Monday because the special election is, the runoff election rather, is on Tuesday. And then we will recess that meeting to December 11th. We'll have an agenda meeting the following week on the 7th. And then we'll have our agenda meeting that same day, of course, for the final board meeting on December 18th. 18th. Everybody got that? All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? We're in adjournment. Thank you.